Could Roman soldiers have reached China? The sound alone would have been terrifying. A Roman legion contained around 5,000 men. 5,000 men had 10,000 feet. Each of those 10,000 feet was shod in Carrhae, the famous Roman hobnailed military sandals. The sound of just one of these shoes slapping against stone signalled to the Empire's enemies that trouble was on its way. The noise alone, made by 10,000, is all but unthinkable. Yet it is not the sound of the Roman legions that at a distance of 2 millennia is the most compelling. It is their silences. One such silence enveloped the legions of Crassus who fought against the Parthian Empire at the Battle of Carrhae in now, which is Turkey. Crassus should never have stepped onto the battlefield. He was wealthy, so much so that the famously affluent Crassus paled into comparison to him. But during combat, gold is no substitute for an affinity with sharpened steel. The omens for the battle had been terrible, and it transpired devastatingly accurate. By the end of that dark day in 53 BC, Crassus' son had been beheaded, with the decapitated head paraded on a spear before his father. Crassus, his heart broken, lost his own head a little later. The battle would become infamous as one of Rome's worst ever military defeats, and the thousands of Roman soldiers who hadn't lost their lives were taken captive and transported east. Although the Roman poet Horace suggested that the remnants of the legions had married Parthians, their true fate remains shrouded in mystery. The Parthians had a standard practice of employing captured soldiers as border guards, and by transferring the 10,000 legionnaires to the eastern borders, they prevented any realistic chance of escape for the Romans, who likely would have simply accepted their new lot in life. Record of soldiers vanished for about 17 years when the Battle of Zhizhi was fought as Chinese army under Chen Tang assaulted a border town known today as Taraz, located in Kazakhstan. Chinese historians note that the defenders held their shields in a fish scale pattern. The fight for the town was intense, but the Chinese prevailed. The Chinese, under the Han dynasty, at this point, were near the height of their power. This battle represented their greatest westward expansion, and the victory was achieved in part because many of the locals defected to the Chinese out of fear. The Chinese were so impressed by their foreign warriors that they put them into another border town, this time guarding the border between China and Tibet. As Tibetan raids were not uncommon around this time, anywhere from 100 to 1,000 or more soldiers established themselves in this town that was known by the Chinese as Liqian, which is pronounced as legion. These men were known to use tools such as tree trunk counterweight construction devices, and to reinforce the area into a square fort, a common sight in the Mediterranean but quite rare in Asia. It seems these Romans lived peacefully in Liqian, and 2,000 years later we have DNA evidence that over 50% of the villagers in modern-day Liqian have Caucasian ancestry, including green eyes and blue, an increased average height, and other distinguishing characteristics such as distinctly Roman noses. The people in the small village are aware and are proud of their ancestry, celebrating the Romans and showing a fond interest in bulls, a heavily worshipped animal of Roman legions. A great many modern historians absolutely dismiss the story of the legionnaires in China as more of a fairy tale than truth, although some of the prominent historians still argue that the sequence of events is quite possible and even the most probable of theories. Just because it is a hard to believe tale does not make it at all untrue. In every reference from the Asian sources, the foreigners appear to be none other than the 10,000 legionnaires captured at Carrhae. The only gap in knowledge is that the Romans transferred from the Parthian control to Mongol control, as the Mongols held the town at the Battle of Zhizhi. It seems that either the Romans were captured and transported again, or more likely that they were sold as mercenaries. The fish scale formation at the battle and the professional practice points to seasoned soldiers. These Romans would have just had each other for company through these many years, so it's understandable to think they had outstanding discipline and kept up their training, which would lead them to have such an impressive showing at Zhizhi, and that the Chinese used them to guard their own territory. The modern descendants of Romans are decent evidence of the Romans' presence, but the two other theories are possible. The town of Lycian was near a multicultural Silk Road, therefore the Caucasian DNA could be from travellers along that road. The possibility is that the soldiers at the battle and settlers of the Chinese town were actually descendants of Alexander the Great's army, though this seems even more unlikely, as the events are multiple generations removed from Alexander's campaign, and that the army at Zhizhi was clearly fighting in a professional and Western way. The only remaining evidence needed to authenticate the story would be Roman coins or other artefacts at Lycian. If the story is true, it is an amazing story of tragic loss, followed by strict adherence to professional soldiery. By the time they settled in Lycian, these soldiers would be in their 40s and 50s and looking forward to retirement. Based off the DNA of the descendants, it does seem like they weren't subject to many Tibetan raids, or perhaps they were put to the test again and finally held their own ground.